Welcome to the fastest stuff in town. Today, Masechtas Menachot stuff Kuf Gimel. We are going to begin on Kuf Gimel Amud Aleph by the Mishnah. Says the Mishnah, Ha'omer Hari Alai Mincha Min HaSa'irin. A person says that I'm going to accept upon myself to bring a mincha out of barley. So the din is Yomi Menachitin. Now, even though it's true, there is a carbon that exists that is made out of sa'irin. We know that, for example, the saita is a barley offering. We also know that the minchas omer was also barley. But typical minchas are chitin, or wheat, and therefore that's what it is. Kemach, if he says I'm going to bring only regular flour, Yavi Soyo says to bring fine flour. Below shemen, below lavaina, Yavi shem lavaina. Even if he said I'm not going to do it, he still has to bring shem lavaina. Chatzi yisaron Yavi, I'm going to bring half an yisaron, so Yavi yisaron shom. He has to bring a whole amount. However, yisaron mechsa Yavi shtayim. He says 1.5, then he has to do 2. Rabbi Shimon poiter shelo his nadev kederech hamasnadvin. He says no, you didn't say it the proper way, and therefore what you say means nothing. Says the Gemara, Amai neder pischu moihu. So the Gemara asks, why is he mechuyev to bring wheat? Right? He made an opening. He explained what he wanted to do. Right? He basically says Rashi, Ima neder oimer pesach shemischarit bo. He has now reason to have regret. Kivandi oimer minasairin, because he said barley, so therefore it's clear the fact that he said that Amrinan de'ein medaitel havi klum, or his das was not to bring anything. Dadim yodeshim mincha min ha'sairin, because he knows that a mincha is wheat and not barley. So why is he mechuyev to have to bring anything? So Omer Chizkiah, so there's a couple answers. Hamadi Beishamai, the Omer Tavas Lo Sharishan. Beishamai says we go after his first language. The fact is, he said, Harayale Mincha. And once you say that, that's it. Those are the first words, that's all we care about. What you say afterwards doesn't make any difference. Okay. So you have to bring a proper Mincha. Now, where do we see that he holds, you go after the first Lashon? Did not. Harani Nazir min agorgus min avela. Person says, I'm a Nazir. Now, a Nazir is not allowed to eat grape products or drink wine. Now, there's no prohibition from eating dry figs and dates. There's no shaykhus with Nazirus. Beishami Amrim Nazir. I don't care, you're still a Nazir. Beisol Amrim Enu Nazir. So, why is that? He holds because we're Tafas Al Sharishon. Beishami holds that we look at the first thing you said. And the first thing you said is Harani Nazir. And that's it. Once you're a Nazir, so that's it. We don't care what you say afterwards. So to over here. So our Mishnah is like Shittas Beis Shammai. That's answer number 1. Beis Hillel says we're not Tafas Lo Sharishon. But Omer Il Hayisir Day, if I would have known Shein Neider Kach, that I'm going to make a neder like this, Lo Hayisir Neider Kach El Kach, I would have made a neder in the proper way. In other words, it is possible a person could make this mistake to not know the difference between wheat and barley. They're both grains. They're both very similar, and mint and carbonos are brought from both of them. So it's very possible that he just made a mistake, and that's the reason why he said what he said. So Omer Chizki, Lo Shanu, the only time we say this idea of, well, maybe he thought it was okay, is only El de Omer Mincham and a Sa'irin, because Sa'irin is the shaykhus to a carbon. But if he said, I'm going to bring a mincha from lentils, no, because certainly no one's going to make such a mistake, as the Gemara is going to explain. Michti. Right? So according to Beis Shammai, the reason is Tavos Rishon. Mali min hasarin, mali min hadashim. It doesn't make any difference. In other words, according to Beis Shammai, he just holds your Tafas Lo Sharishon. Since your Tafas Lo Sharishon, it doesn't matter if you said that you want to bring a mincha from Sa'irim, or you want to bring a mincha from Adashim. And either way, we don't care, because even if it's totally off, like Adashim, we go after your first words, and once you say Haralei Mincha, you have to bring a Mincha Higenes. So according to Beis Shammai, that's how it would work. But according to this other shita, it's a distinction of whether or not you would make such a mistake. So Hadarbe. So on this, he retracted. My time Hadarbe. Why? Rava Masnis and Kashis. Our mission is difficult because Ma'iri the Tani Mincham and Asari and Listim and Adashim. If it's true that there's no difference, then the Mishnah should have chosen a bigger chiddush and said that even if you made a far-fetched statement like adashim, like lentils, still you have to bring a proper mincha. So why does it instead say barley? It's probably barley dafka, but adashim, the din would be different. Ela shmami no mishum the taihu. It's only because he made a mistake, but it's only b'sa'orim toy. Only with that could you make a mistake. However, ba'adashim lo toy, a person wouldn't make such a mistake. So Rashi leikel memer il hayisu yadeh, had I known, tavani yada, he knew. Shin mincha shel adashim v'lav lamidi yischaven. His kavanah was to do nothing, and therefore that's the distinction. Question 7. Ha'omer harei olai mincha min ha'sa'arim yavim menachitin. Ve'im hu adin ba'omer harei olai mincha min hadashim u'mastad b'zeh. So, if, like Beis Shammai, you hold your Tavos Lashon Rishon, so then it doesn't make any difference. Hadashim is the same. But if it's based on, had I known, I would have made the proper neder, so certainly by Hadashim he would have known. And therefore, for that reason, we would say the din is different, and maybe that's the reason why our Mishnah said it in this particular way. Okay. Question B25. That's our Mishnah. Okay, that's our Mishnah that said that, and we said it's like Beis Shammai who's Tavos Lashon Rishon. Be'ezel lashon chayiv. So what language are you chayiv? Be'ezel lashon potter. It's not so clear what that means. So you could go a couple of ways with this. You can say if we're dealing with maybe it's the difference between olai and zu, right? And that's how I went over here. Or it could be totally on if it's chitim or adashim, right? Not so clear exactly what they're looking for in that question. Okay, let's keep moving. So Rav Yochanan Amrafilu min hadashim. No, even when it comes to adashim, you still have to bring a regular mincha. Michti. Rabbi Yochanan come on Amal Shmai Seik Beis Hill. He'll take Beis Hill. Beis Hill Mishum the Toihu. B'Sairin Toy Ba'adashim Lo Toy. But you don't make a mistake by adashim. So how do you understand this? So the answer is with the word the Chizkiah Karmelei. He's explaining the words of a Chizkiah. At my time, Hadarbach, why'd you retract Mishum the Katanim in Hadashim? Because why does our Mishnah not say Adashim, which would be the bigger Chiddush? It must be there's a difference between Sa'arim and Adashim. The din is not the same. It's not like Beis Shammai or Tavos Lashon Rishon when it comes to Sa'arim and by Adashim. No. Only like our Mishnah that you have to bring a regular minchas because you made a mistake. But by Adashim, when you made a mistake. Dilma lo b'boy kaimer. Lo b'boy min Adashim dikla meimer mahader hu the hader bay. Maybe he retracted V'tavos Lashon Rishon. We go after his first statement. Maybe there he made a mistake. He didn't really retract. So actually you can say, interesting enough, and you could say that the point is that since it's more likely that what you said is correct, so maybe you weren't chayzer, and that's not like you didn't want to bring anything, right? So when it comes to Sa'irim, maybe that's taka true, that's what you wanted to bring, but not by Adash. Kuf Gem Lum Beis. Armiz Iri, Lo Shanu El Diarmer Mincha, of Loy Oimer Mincha Lo. And this could be part of what question TB 25 is asking, possibly. He says, like, what lashain? So I'm just going to mark this down, that this is possibly as well. That the only time we say that your Tavos Lashon Rishon, right? We only say your Tavos Lashon Rishon is only that you said mincha. Of a loy or mincha lo. You have to at least say the word mincha, right? Right? Write that down. You need to at least say the word mincha to be tafas lashon rishon? Okay, maybe that's all they're asking for. Yosef Rav Nachman who Karmel Hashma Yisais, Rav Nachman, he asked a question. Kemach Yav Yisayos. So if you wanted to, you say, I'm going to bring this regular flour, you have to bring fine flour. Lav Doloi Armin Mincha. He didn't say mincha, right? So you're telling me there's a distinction between if we said mincha. That's when he has to bring a good one, but he didn't say mincha there. Lo, do you remember mincha? He did say it. Below Shem Lovayna, Yavi Shem Lovayna. My love Doloi Armin Mincha. He didn't say mincha. Lo, do you remember mincha? He did say. Chatz, it's going to be the same questions. Chatzi Saran Yavi Saran Shalim. My love Doloi Armin Mincha. Right? Lo, do you remember mincha? Yihachi Ema Seifel. What does this last part of the Mishnah say? He's starting with mechsa. If you said I'm going to bring 1.5, you have shnayim. You have to bring 2. Now, the question is, kivan di armer mincha. Once you said the word mincha, chayav lebi saran. You should only be chayav the one saran. Kiyamer chatzi saran lo over klum, lo klum kaimer. The second one shouldn't do anything. Says Rashi, leisi chadi saran b'sulo. You should only have to bring 1 and not 2. Who? Some say who? Well, tzricha di armer hari alai mincha. You said I'm going to bring upon myself a mincha. Chatzi isaron v'isaron. So you use that language. Tikivan di armer mincha. Once you said the mincha, chayav lebi isaron. However, ki armer chatzi isaron v'lo klum kaimer. But ki ahadar armer isaron. Then he says isaron again. So chatzi isaron is nothing. But then since he said isaron again, my si isaron achrin. Let's bring a second. So yihachi Rav Shimon poiter. So his not b'derech hamisnadvin. So he didn't do it the right way. It sounds like he did it pretty good. So Rav Shimon b'shit Rav Yosi Amar the Amar af b'gemar devar of Adam matvis. He goes after not just tafas lashon rishon, but the whole thing. Look at Rashi. He doesn't just go after the beginning or just the end. He listens to the whole thing. He says the mincha chatzi saron pirushi kamafarish. This is what he's explaining. Mincha shel chatzi saron v'yisaron dehain. This is not the normal way of speaking, and therefore that's why he says you're not chayim. Okay. Let's see the next Mishnah. A person could give a nadava of 60 worth of flour. However, in umevi kliyachad, it can only be put into one kli, even though it's a lot. Parentheses. Shishim Yisaroin, maybe Kliyachad. Im Amar Harlai Samach Aleph, if it's 61, it's a famous Gemara, maybe Shishim B'Kliyachad. 60 is a Kli number 1, Vecha B'Kliyachad. You cannot go above 60. It has to be 60 and no more. We'll see why. Rashi brings down. Well, first let's see this next line. Shechein Hatzibur, maybe B'Yom Tov Rishon Shulchan, the first day of Sukkot, Shechos B'Shabbos, the first day of Sukkot is Shabbos, Shishim Echad. There's 61 Isarin that are brought. So, Dayel Yachid Shehu Pachis Min Hatzibur Echad. It's better that the Tzibur brings 61, everyone, a Yachid should only bring 60. How do we find on the first day of Sukkot, which falls out on Shabbos, that 61 are brought? So Rashi says, Yud Gimel Parim, for the 13 bowls, it was a Lamed Tes Esroinim. There was 39. Shloisha Esroinim Lepar, 3 Esroinim per par. So 13 times 3 is 39. Yadal Kvasim, in the 14 Kvasim Yudal Esroinim, there was another 14. Hari Nun Gimel, that equals 53. L'shnei Elim Daled Esroinim, there was another 4. So now we're up to 7. To Hari Nun Zayin. L'shnei Tamidin, when it comes to the 2 Tamidim, Shnayim. L'shnei Kivsei Musav. So that makes it go to the 2 Tamidin Shnayim. And then L'shnei Kiset, most of the Shabbos, Shnayim. So Hari Samach Aleph. So how do we get to that? We had 39 plus 14 is 53, plus 4 is 57, plus 2 is 61. Okay, so that's the calculation. Rav Shimon, I don't understand. We're talking about different amounts of oil that's put into each of these histronim, depending if it's a par or a keves. It can't be the same kli, even though it's fine. It's true, there was 61 histronim, but it wasn't put in one kli, because you can't put these different types of mixtures, which are not the same, in the same kli. Then all of a sudden, certain ones will be thicker than they should, some will be looser than they should, and that's not allowed. Ella, a different reason. You got to mix it up. It's got to be all mixed. It seems that you have to do it. We'll see in the Gemara if that's true. So Amalo Shishim Nivloim. Shishim Echad Nivloim. 60 could mix. Once you get one little more in there, 61, you can't mix it. Amlem Kol Midas Chachamim Kain. And even though you can say, what's the difference between 60 and 60.1, right, or 61, that's how we make measures. We have to have cutoffs. We see this bar boyim saw who toivel, boyim saw chaser kortam in a chalitbol behen. A mikvah is 40 saw, corresponding to person who's 3 amos by 1 by 1. We'll say, well, one second, what's a smaller person, or it's a bigger person? How do you say it's 40 saw? What if it's a drop of water less? What's the difference? A magical thing happens with a drop of water? Yeah, that's what it is. The Chachamim give shiurim, and we have to adhere to them. Says the Gemara, Shol she'ila l'malam Rabbi Yehuda bar Eloi. Menayin l'oimer harei shishim ve'echad. How do we know if someone says 61? Maybe shishim b'kli echad. He's bringing 61 kli ve'echad b'kli echad. So Pasuk Rabbi Yehuda bar Eloi, who is Rosh Madabrim b'chol makom, and we're close to Lag BaOmer, as we're in 2026 learning this during Sfiras Omer. And of course, we know Rabbi Yehuda was the Rosh Madabrim, Rabbi Yehuda bar Eloi, because he was the one who praised Rome. So therefore the Romans rewarded him. Or of course the Rashbi or Shemir Yochai got a different punishment. V'yomer got a punishment. V'yomer shekem asinu tzibor mevi'in b'yom tav rishon shulchan shachlis b'shabbos like our Mishnah. There's 61, as Rashi showed us. Da'il yochid shivchas min tzibor should be one less. Amalei Rav Shimon v'lo elu parim ve'elu elu parim ve'elim ve'elu kvasim. Elu bil yasan ava ve'elu bil yasan raka. Again, the amounts of oil in each of them are different. There's different recipes for each one depending on what carbon it is. So you can't put them together in the same kli. Elu bil yasan shachars ve'elu bil yasan bin arbayim. Some are done in the morning, like the Talmud Shel Shachar, the Talmud Shel bin arbayim, but different times. They're not in the same kli. Ve'en nivloim mizel is that not in the same place. Shamlo amar ata. So you speak. The pasuk says it's supposed to be mixed up with oil. So the Mishnah, the pasuk says it's got to be something you can mix, and just 60 is the maximum of being able to mix. But what? How's that work? There's a difference, such a small difference. Yeah, that's just how it works. Who bar Masah, who Taivel bar Masah Chaser Kortev, and Yachol Litboil. That's the Chachamim says 40 saw to go in the mikvah. And furthermore, the Chachamim said Kebeitz Matami Tumas Oichlin. If you have the size of a beit, it's Matami Tumas Oichlin. Kebeitz Chaser Shum, the smallest amount, and Matami Tumas Oichlin. And another situation, Shloisha Matami Medris. If it's 3 by 3 tefachim, it's Matami Medris. The Shloisha Chaser Nima. Achas, that this garment is missing a single thread. Matami medrus. So that's the answer. So correctly, Gemara. Okay, I understand. It's nice to mix it, but is it ma'akev? Well, tanan im loy bol kosher. We know that even if you don't mix it up, it's still fine. So in this we have the famous Gemara, which is in many places, in Kedushin and so many other sources. Kol haroy labila in bila ma'kevasbo. it doesn't have to be mixed, but it has to be that if you tried to mix it, you could mix it. It has to be fit to mix. So famous words of Reb Zera. There was a story about a particular mule, Shel Beis Rabbi, Shemes that died. Yeshir Chachamim as dam or revius. They were trying to figure out, is this dam in this animal a revius? And if it would be a revius, says Rashi Leda, the Yemeshu revius, Yifreshu Mimenu, Kinavela. We'll have to figure out, should we separate from it? And we basically saw that this is how it works. So we have specific measurements for every single thing. Even a drop of blood more or less can make all the difference. Master Rabbi Yitzchak bar, it's a game of inches, like football. Master Rabbi Yitzchak bar Bisna lahavdol. Head Rabbi Shua ben Beseira al dam nevel shutar. So he says regarding dam nevel, it's tar. Rabbi Shua ben Beseira ma'asav hayu noichrin dudiois, that they were spearing donkeys, Lorias Biistaria Shel Melech. Says Rashi, Hayu Noichrin, these Arude Hayar, Hayu Noichrin Litzar Harayas. Bahayu Oil Reglayim Shaikin, and the oil reglayim would submerge Ad Rechavoisei until their feet basically, but dam was filled with blood. No one said anything. So what do you mean? Apparently it's not tamei. So ishtik. So my time will mahadir mar. Why don't you answer similarly? Hachi hadir. This is how you should answer. So what do we know from this pasuk? This is a person who takes wheat from year to year. And he's then says he's afraid day and night. Someone who takes grain from week to week. Don't trust in your days. Someone who relies on the baker who relies each day. Says Rashi. He has no ground to plant. He has no idea what's going to be next year. And Nachdom, and a baker, he's worried from day to day what's going to be. Kuf Daled. Vahu Gavra al Palter Samach. And this person, namely himself, I'm constantly thinking about the Palter. Says Rashi, Ve'ein daiti miyushav. I don't have a good head to think about the answers. So my havel, what's the maskan? What's the end of this regarding shiurim? So Rabbi Yosef, Rabbi Yehuda, Moriana, Debei Nasia, Havi, but Oirila, Kishmaise did not. Rabbi Yehuda, Omer, Shish Devarim, Mikol Beis Shammai, Chamer Beis Hillel. There's 6 times the Beis Shammai is Mekel. Dam Nevelis, when it comes to Dam of a Nevela, Beis Shammai Metahar, Beis Hillel Metamin. So Beis Shammai Taka says, it's a Machok, Beis Shammai says it's Tahar, Dam Nevela. Amar Rav Yosef, Yehuda, Af Kishit, Mu Beis Hillel, Lo Tamu El Revius. Only if it's a revius, a measurement, because if it would congeal, a revius would turn into a dry kazayas, which is enough to mimatam. Okay, we'll stop there. Let's see if maybe another question. Question 8. Matam she'ein hamasnad mincha maybe Yosef mesamech yisaron b'kliyachad. So one is either because the tzibur brought 61 and Yom Tov on the first day of Sukkot on Shabbos, so we're going to do one less, or because it has to be fit to be mixed, and therefore, since it can't get mixed, therefore it doesn't work. TA22. Ami Harilai Mincha Maxa Yavi Echa, just one. Madua. Why? Why not? Why should you only have to bring one? Be'ezel Lashin Yavi Shnaim Umadua. So let's get this down. This TA22. So Yavi Saran Echad. So you only have to bring one. Kivad Yamri Mincha Chayiv Le Bisaran. V'chatzi Saran Eno Klum. Right. So let's get this down. So Lotzricha the Omer Harilai Mincha Chatzi Saron the Isaron. Kivan the Omer Mincha Chayev your Isaron. Ki Omer Chatzi Saron Lomer Klom. However, Ki Hadar Omer Isaron again. Maisi Isar Machrina. Let's see if that's what it says. So again, TA 22. Yavi Isar Nacha Dikavandi Omer Mincha Chayev Leim Isar. The Chatzi Isaron is nothing. However, if then you said Harilai Mincha Chatzi Isaron the Isaron, so maybe Shtayim Dikavandi Omer Mincha Chayev Isaron the Chatzi Laklum Yakach Omer Isaron Chayev Bo'id Isaron. So therefore, because of that second time, once you said Isaron, even though you said Chatzi Isaron, which is nothing, but then you said Isaron, so therefore that's enough for you to be Chayev. Okay. Question TA23, no. TB26, Adkan.